at one of my favorite cameras to shoot with, which is Yashica D. Yashica is a Japanese-made camera that was made anywhere in between 1950s and late 1970s, maybe even into 1980s. And there were several installations of the camera, starting with the A, then it went to B, C, D, 645 version, I believe, as well, and then after that the Yashica Mat 124 and Yashica Mat 124G, which actually had a light meter built in. These were kind of copies of a Rolleiflex camera, which was made by a German company called Rolle, that was very popular and is even today. They're twin leaf reflex cameras, which this means that they have two lenses. The top lens is actually used for viewing the picture, and the bottom lens is used for taking the picture. So there are some interesting things that happens when you do that, but one of the nice things about it is that because you have a viewing lens, you can actually be able to see the photograph while it's being taken by looking through this viewfinder on top, which we'll review in a while. So just kind of go around the camera a little bit, show you what's what. First of all, you can see these two knobs here. One is for aperture control and one is for shutter control. And if you look at the top of the camera right here, you can actually see that it shows you what your f-stop and what your shutter speeds are when you take the photograph. In order to take the picture, you have to cock the shutter, and there's actually a little lever that you can pull here to do that, and then you just press the shutter release in order to take the photograph. In this model, the film advance, which is actually right here, is not in any way connected to the shutter. So what that means is that theoretically, if you're not paying attention, you can double expose. In other words, if you take one shot and forget to film advance, then you end up taking another shot and you get some either interesting effects or you get very upset depending on what it is that you were trying to do. So let's see here, since we're already on this side, I can also show you this. So this is just basically a focus for the camera, and just by moving that backwards and forwards, as you can see, the entire body of the lenses moves back and forth, which actually gets your picture into focus. The film advance is kind of interesting too, because it actually has this button that's here in the center. So when you forward, and you get to a certain spot, it will click in place. And it's a mechanical measure of how long the 120 film should advance so that it's not overlapping one picture over the other. And then after that, it will click in place. So in order to move it on to the next frame, you actually have to press this button in and then go ahead and advance the camera again. And this only works if the film is in the camera, which film is actually not in the camera right now, so I can't show you that. Also here, there is a film counter. That's going to switch to 1 when you have properly put the film in, and then if you do advance this correctly, you will see it go up to 12, and after that it will release, and it will let you to wind this all the way to the other end and be able to pull the film out when you're done. So okay, we looked at that side. Look at this side here. Just a couple of quick things to show you here. This is a flash insert, hookup, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And down here you have a selector for M versus X. M was used back in the days of bulb flash, and X is used for normal other flash. I'm told, based on looking at other reviews, that the best place to keep this is X, so that's where mine is set to. I would recommend that you look at other places online and find the user manual if you can, to get the full explanation of how all these functions work. Also, if you look down here at the bottom, you can see there's actually a little lever. This is for self-timer. Mine works, but since all this is mechanical, I just even hate the idea of using the self-timer, so I don't use mine for that, but you can yours if you want to. Here you have a cold shoe for a flash, which I've never used, so I can't really talk much about that. And these two knobs are really just for helping you place the film in the camera and advance it properly, so I'll show you that in a second. So let's go to the viewfinder, which is my favorite part about the camera. As you can see here, there's ground glass down there, so when I put my hand or some object in front of the viewing lens, you can actually see the object in the ground glass, which is really cool because it's actually the same size as the picture you're going to be taking. So it helps you compose the shot properly. If you press on the top here, a magnifying lens comes out as well, which is extremely important because if you want to get down to the fine focus, really looking through this magnifying lens is rather important, I think, because otherwise you're just not going to be 100% sure that it's in focus, so I use it all the time. Okay, so I'm going to shut that down, and I'm just going to open the camera to show you how you get the film into it. So if you look down on the bottom, there's a big knob here. It says O and C. O means to open, and it's in red, so we're just going to twist that a turn or so, and that's going to pop this lid open, which is actually going to expose the part of the camera where you put the film in. It's super easy in my opinion. I mean, it might take you a time or two to figure out how to do it first time, but basically you pull this knob, and that releases this film holder, which you can see right here. I have this left over from the last shot, last film that I used. And then you just put it here, which I won't take the time to do now. Then next you would put your 120 film in here, and you just feed it across these two little rollers over to this side. You put the beginning of the film right in this slit here, which actually kind of helps get it started. And then with the use of the wind knob, you just start winding, and as the paper goes across this part, you will get to a point where there'll be some arrows, and you want to align the arrow with a little red arrow dot that's shown here, and then you close the whole system with both of these buttons being pressed in, because that's what helps move the film forward properly. After that, the camera does the rest. You just keep winding, and it will keep pulling the film forward until it gets itself in the spot for the shot number one, and then it's going to lock in place. There are other videos online that shows you how to do this with film, so if you're interested in doing it, you can do it. Otherwise, I think you can even practice with some old film or whatever. It's not really too hard to do. Okay, so I think that's all there is for Yashica D. You just go back to close, make sure that stays in a close position. It has nice little feet here that you can position it if you want to take the picture on the ground. And that's one of the interesting things about this camera. It does give you a weird perspective sometimes because it is low or it's on the waist level. And also, I've heard others who say this, and I would concur, because it's hanging off your neck usually, or because you're holding it in the hand, it's a little different than when you're holding a camera to your face. So you actually can take a picture, I would say, with a 30th of a second easily, maybe even a 15th of a second handheld, which is a little different than what you can do with the other cameras. This Yashica D has a f3.5 for the largest aperture. I wish I was 2.8, but I think if you want to do that, you got to go to Rolleiflex, which costs quite a bit more than this. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it.